It all began with what seemed like innocent conversations. My wife, Melissa, and my brother, Jason, had always been close. They'd known each other for years, and their friendship had always been a source of comfort for me. I never thought much of their interactions, believing them to be nothing more than friendly exchanges between old friends. However, something began to shift. It was subtle at first, a glance, a laugh, a touch that lingered just a little too long. At first, I dismissed these feelings as paranoia. After all, Jason had been my brother since childhood. I trusted him implicitly. And Melissa, well, she was the love of my life. We had built a life together, one filled with shared dreams and promises. It was during one of those ordinary evenings when my suspicions first took root. I was working late, and Melissa had invited Jason over for dinner. As I arrived home, I noticed a distinct change in the atmosphere. There was an easy familiarity between them that seemed out of place, almost too comfortable. They exchanged inside jokes and knowing glances that I wasn't privy to. I shrugged it off, attributing it to their long-standing friendship. But the unease grew. Small details started to surface. Details that, when pieced together, began to form a troubling picture. Melissa's phone left carelessly on the kitchen counter, buzzed with messages from Jason at odd hours. Little comments she made about how Jason really gets her began to sound increasingly loaded with hidden meaning. It was as if every word, every interaction, carried an undertone I couldn't ignore. My suspicions intensified when I began noticing subtle changes in Melissa's behavior. She was more distant, her responses to my questions curt and unengaged. When she spoke about Jason, her tone was different, lighter, almost affectionate. There were evenings when she would come home later than usual, claiming to be caught up with work or running errands, yet there were no specific details she could provide. It wasn't just the emotional distance that bothered me. It was the small things that didn't quite add up. Melissa would leave the house in the early morning and return late at night, often with an excuse that seemed flimsy at best. Jason was frequently mentioned in these conversations, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to their relationship than met the eye. One day, I came across a photo on Melissa's phone, one that she had forgotten to delete. It was a picture of her and Jason, taken at a recent party. They were close. Almost too close, their bodies pressed together in a decidedly intimate way. It was a seemingly innocent snapshot, but it struck me as deeply unsettling. It was clear from the photo that their bond had crossed a line that should never have been crossed. As these suspicions festered, I began to act more cautiously. I started paying closer attention to their interactions, analyzing every detail with growing anxiety. Conversations between Melissa and Jason, once benign, now seemed charged with a hidden, almost electric tension. Their laughter seemed louder, their smiles more meaningful. I found myself increasingly consumed by jealousy and doubt. My mind raced with thoughts of betrayal and deception, unable to reconcile the love I thought I knew with the troubling reality I was beginning to see. The person I trusted most, and the brother who had always been like a second skin to me, were now the center of my darkest fears. The unsettling feelings that had been gnawing at me grew into a consuming obsession. I could no longer ignore the creeping doubt that clouded my mind, and the only way to find some semblance of clarity was to take matters into my own hands. It was clear that my suspicions needed to be verified beyond mere conjecture. I needed proof, something tangible to confirm or dispel the fears that had taken root in my heart. With a resolve born from both fear and anger, I decided to conduct my investigation. It was a decision fraught with ethical dilemmas, but my desire for the truth overpowered my sense of moral propriety. I knew that if I was to uncover the truth, I needed to observe them without their knowledge, to witness the reality of their relationship with my own eyes. I began by researching surveillance equipment online. The options were overwhelming, but I focused on compact, discrete cameras that could be hidden in plain sight. My goal was to place them in locations where they would capture the interactions between Melissa and Jason without being detected. I purchased several small cameras equipped with motion detection and real-time streaming capabilities, ensuring that I would not miss a single moment. The installation process was meticulous. I spent hours strategizing the best locations for the cameras. I chose places that were frequented by Melissa and Jason: the living room, the kitchen, and the study, areas where they often spent time together. I carefully positioned each camera behind objects that would conceal them, such as picture frames, bookshelves, and decorative items. Every detail was considered, from the angle of the camera to the lighting conditions, to ensure that the footage would be unambiguous. With everything in place, I waited. The anticipation was unbearable, each passing day feeling like an eternity. I found myself constantly checking the live feeds on my laptop, hoping to catch a glimpse of the truth that would either confirm or obliterate my worst fears. The first few days yielded nothing of significance. The cameras captured routine moments of daily life: Melissa cooking, Jason working on his laptop, and occasional casual conversations. The footage was mundane and ordinary, but the tension in my chest never eased. I continued to scrutinize every second of footage, searching for any sign of the deeper connection I suspected. Then, one evening, everything changed. The footage revealed something I had feared but hoped was not true. Melissa and Jason were in the living room, and their interactions were unmistakably intimate. They were seated on the sofa, their bodies close, their conversation hushed and private. Jason leaned in, his hand resting on Melissa's leg in a way that was far from casual. Melissa responded with a smile that was filled with a warmth that was more than friendly. As the evening progressed, their proximity grew more evident. Jason's hand traveled further up Melissa's leg, and their faces were close, their breaths mingling as they spoke in low voices. There was an undeniable chemistry between them, a physical and emotional closeness that was deeply troubling. They shared a kiss that was both tender and passionate. A kiss that spoke of a connection that went beyond mere friendship. It was a betrayal that was laid bare before me, captured in the unrelenting gaze of the cameras. The realization of what I was seeing hit me like a tidal wave. The evidence was clear and incontrovertible. Melissa and Jason were involved in a relationship that transcended the bounds of friendship. The footage was a stark, undeniable record of their infidelity, and it left me grappling with a maelstrom of emotions: anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. I reviewed the footage multiple times, unable to reconcile the image before me with the love and trust I had once had for them. Each replay of the footage only solidified the truth I had dreaded. The secret life they had been living was now exposed, and I was left with the painful task of confronting this harsh reality. The cameras had provided me with the truth, but it was a truth that came with a heavy price. The images were a clear depiction of their betrayal. And now I had to decide how to confront Melissa and Jason with this undeniable proof. The day of reckoning arrived with a weight I could scarcely bear. After hours of poring over the damning footage, I knew it was time to confront Melissa. The evidence was irrefutable, and my heart pounded with a mixture of dread and determination as I prepared for what was sure to be the most painful conversation of my life. I waited until evening, choosing a moment when the house was quiet and still. Melissa was in the kitchen, preparing dinner, a task that had once been a simple and comforting routine for us. Now, it seemed like the cruelest of ironies. I approached her with a resolve that masked my inner turmoil, knowing that the truth could no longer be delayed. "Well," I began, my voice steady but taut, "we need to talk." Melissa looked up, her expression a mixture of curiosity and concern. "Sure, what's wrong?" I took a deep breath, feeling the enormity of the situation settling over me. "It's about you and Jason." Her face immediately tensed, a flicker of something, guilt, passing over her features. "What do you mean?" Without answering, I walked to the living room and retrieved the laptop from my desk. I sat down on the sofa, and Melissa followed, a perplexed frown on her face. I opened the file containing the footage and turned the screen toward her. The image of her and Jason, so close, so intimate, filled the screen. This is what I mean, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Melissa's eyes widened in shock as she took in the video. The scene played out in front of us, a stark reminder of the betrayal I had witnessed. There they were, her and Jason, caught in a moment of closeness that was both personal and painfully revealing. I watched as her face flushed with a mixture of shame and desperation. What? What is this? She stammered, though the answer was clear. It's the truth, I replied, trying to keep my voice calm despite the storm raging inside me. I installed cameras around the house. I needed to know if my suspicions were right. And here it is, proof of what you've been doing. Melissa's eyes filled with tears, and she looked away from the screen, her hands trembling. I didn't mean for this to happen, she said, her voice breaking. Jason and I, we were just. Just what? I cut her off, unable to contain the hurt and anger any longer. Just friends who crossed a line. Just people who decided to throw away everything we've built? She tried to reach out, but I pulled back, unable to bear any further physical contact. I'm so sorry, she said, her voice choked with emotion. I never wanted to hurt you. It just happened. I didn't know it would get so out of hand. Out of hand? I echoed, disbelief coloring my tone. This isn't about things getting out of hand. This is about a betrayal of trust. You and Jason, my brother, took something from me that can't ever be replaced. Melissa's attempts at justification only seemed to make things worse. She spoke of feelings that had developed, of emotional needs that she claimed were unmet. But her words were hollow, each excuse feeling like a slap in the face. We've been struggling, she said. I didn't think it would turn into something like this. No, I said firmly, my resolve hardening. This is not about struggling. This is about choices. You made choices that were destructive and hurtful. And now we have to face the consequences. As the argument intensified, Melissa's defenses crumbled. She was reduced to pleading and crying, trying to salvage what little was left of our shattered relationship. But I remained unmoved, my heart hardened by the betrayal and the clarity of the evidence before me. The confrontation reached its breaking point when Melissa, in a final, desperate attempt to justify her actions, begged me to understand her perspective. But no matter how she tried to explain or apologize, the pain of seeing her and Jason together was too raw, too immediate. The damage was done. And no amount of words could undo it. I need you to leave, I said, my voice resolute and final. I need to process this, and I need space. We'll figure out the next steps, but right now, I can't deal with any more excuses. Melissa's tears flowed freely as she gathered her things, her pleas becoming a distant echo in the face of my resolve. As she left the house, I was left alone with the video that had exposed the truth and the heavy burden of a future now marred by betrayal. The confrontation had been necessary. But it had also left a void, one that would take time and introspection to fill. In the quiet aftermath of the confrontation, I was left alone with the unbearable weight of the truth. The reality of Melissa and Jason's betrayal settled over me like a suffocating shroud. It wasn't just the physical act of infidelity that struck me with such force. It was the emotional betrayal that cut deepest, leaving a wound that seemed too vast to heal. As the days passed, the full impact of their actions began to sink in. It wasn't just the image of them together on that screen that haunted me. It was the realization of how profoundly they had betrayed my trust. They weren't just lovers who had crossed a line. They were people I had loved and relied upon, who had now shattered my world. Melissa had been my partner, the one I had shared my life with, the one who had been there through the highs and lows. We had built a life together, filled with dreams and hopes for the future. Jason, my brother, had been my confidant and my ally. The one who knew me better than anyone else. To have both of them turn their backs on me was a betrayal that went beyond mere infidelity. It was a breach of the very essence of my trust and my sense of security. The pain was visceral, a deep ache that gnawed at my core. Every memory of our life together now felt tainted. I would see glimpses of moments that had once seemed full of love and warmth, now distorted by the knowledge of what was happening behind my back. It was as if every smile, every shared glance, was a reminder of the deceit that had been hidden beneath the surface. The emotional impact was profound. I found myself questioning everything I had believed about our relationship. How had I been so blind? Had there been signs I had missed? The self-doubt was crushing, leaving me to wonder if I had failed to see the truth because I had wanted to believe in a reality that no longer existed. My interactions with Melissa and Jason were now tainted by a profound mistrust. I couldn't look at them without seeing the lies they had woven. Each conversation felt strained and hollow, filled with unspoken accusations and a deep sense of betrayal. The emotional connection I had once had with them was shattered, leaving me with a chasm of disillusionment. Trust, once the cornerstone of my relationships with Melissa and Jason, was now a fragile, broken thing. The foundation of my life had been rocked by their actions, and rebuilding that trust seemed like an insurmountable challenge. The people I had once confided in, who had been my closest allies, were now the source of my deepest pain. Every interaction with them was a reminder of the emotional betrayal that had occurred. The small things, shared jokes, familiar gestures, became symbols of the deception. The realization that the bond I had cherished was tainted by their actions left me feeling isolated and adrift. The future seemed uncertain, clouded by the emotional fallout of their betrayal. I was left grappling with the task of redefining my relationships and my sense of self. The trust that had been so integral to my life had been stripped away, leaving me to confront a new reality, one where the people I had loved and trusted had fundamentally altered my understanding of them and myself. In the end, the painful truth was that Melissa and Jason had not only betrayed me in the physical sense but had also dismantled the emotional framework that had once supported my world. Their actions had left me with a profound sense of loss, a void that would take time and introspection to fill. The journey ahead would be one of healing and rebuilding, both of myself and the trust that had been so brutally shattered. The aftermath of the betrayal left me with a burning desire for retribution. The hurt and anger that had settled in my chest demanded an outlet, and revenge became an increasingly appealing solution. It was not just about punishing Melissa and Jason for their deceit. It was about reclaiming control over my life and ensuring that they understood the full extent of the pain they had inflicted. My plan was not born from an impulse but from a deep and calculated decision. I wanted them to face the consequences of their actions in a way that would be both poignant and permanent. I needed a strategy that would not only address the betrayal but also help me regain a semblance of control over the life they had disrupted. The first step in my plan was to carefully consider how to sever ties with both Melissa and Jason. I wanted them to be removed from my life in a manner that would leave no room for reconciliation. The goal was to make sure that they understood the gravity of their actions and the irrevocable nature of the consequences. To do this, I focused on the one thing that had always been central to my life and happiness: my daughter, Sophie. She was the only light in my world, the one constant source of joy amidst the chaos and pain. I knew that taking her away from Melissa and Jason would be the most effective way to demonstrate the depth of my resolve. It was a decision driven by both a need for justice and a desire to protect the one thing that mattered most to me. I began by consulting with a lawyer to understand the legal ramifications of my actions. I needed to ensure that I had a solid case for custody, one that would stand up in court. The process was intricate, involving a thorough examination of our family dynamics and the legal framework surrounding parental rights. My lawyer and I meticulously gathered evidence to support my claim, including documentation of Melissa and Jason's relationship and its impact on Sophie. Simultaneously, I began to prepare emotionally and mentally for the battle ahead. I knew that taking Sophie away from Melissa would be a challenging and emotionally charged process. It was essential to remain focused and composed, even as I navigated the legal and personal complexities of the situation. I had to be prepared for the inevitable resistance and emotional fallout that would come from Melissa, Jason, and potentially even from Sophie herself. I also started to implement measures to protect my well-being. The stress of the situation was immense, and I needed to ensure that I was in the best possible state to handle the upcoming challenges. I sought counseling to help manage my emotions and to gain perspective on the situation. It was crucial to have a clear head and a strong support system as I embarked on this path of retribution. As I prepared to execute my plan, I was acutely aware of the emotional toll it would take on all involved. My relationship with Melissa and Jason had been irrevocably damaged, and I was prepared to see it through to the end. The final act of my revenge would be to take Sophie and secure her future in a way that would protect her from the turmoil caused by their actions. In the weeks leading up to the custody hearing, I meticulously prepared my case, ensuring that every detail was in place. I wanted to be sure that there would be no room for doubt or contestation. The legal process was rigorous, but my resolve was unwavering. I was determined to make it clear that their betrayal had not only hurt me personally but had also jeopardized the well-being of the most important person in my life, Sophie. My plan for revenge was not just about retribution, it was about reclaiming control over my life and ensuring that Melissa and Jason faced the full weight of their actions. By taking Sophie, I hoped to not only punish them but also to protect my daughter from the fallout of their betrayal. It was a calculated and deliberate course of action, driven by a profound sense of justice and a deep desire to rebuild my life on my terms. The day had come to confront Melissa with the culmination of my plan. After weeks of preparation and emotional turmoil, I was finally ready to take the step that would forever change the course of our lives. I had arranged a meeting with Melissa to inform her of my decision to take custody of Sophie. It was a moment I had anticipated with a mixture of dread and determination. I chose a neutral location for the meeting, a quiet cafe with a calm atmosphere. I wanted to minimize any additional stress or conflict. The setting was serene, almost too serene for the gravity of the conversation that was about to unfold. I arrived early to collect my thoughts and to mentally brace myself for what was to come. Melissa arrived shortly before our scheduled time. Her face was a mask of confusion and weariness. Her eyes shadowed with an anxious anticipation. As she sat down across from me, her posture was tense, and I could see the effort she was making to remain composed. I took a deep breath, knowing that this conversation would be one of the hardest things I had ever had to do. "Melissa," I began, trying to keep my voice steady, "thank you for meeting me. I need to talk to you about Sophie." She looked at me with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "What's this about, James?" I took another deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. "After everything that's happened, I've made a decision. I'm going to take full custody of Sophie." The words hung in the air, their weight almost tangible. Melissa's face went pale as she processed the gravity of what I had just said. For a moment, she sat in stunned silence, her eyes wide with disbelief. It was clear that she had not anticipated such a drastic move. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You can't be serious." "I am serious," I replied firmly. "I've consulted with my lawyer, and I have every right to take custody of Sophie. The evidence I have, combined with the impact of the situation on her well-being, supports my case." Melissa's reaction was a mixture of anger and desperation. She reached out across the table, her hand trembling. "James, please, don't do this. She's my daughter too. I love her. You can't just take her away from me." Her plea was heart-wrenching, but I had made my decision, and I was resolute. "Melissa, this isn't about love or feelings anymore. It's about what's best for Sophie. The environment she's in right now is unstable, and I need to ensure that she's in a safe and secure place." Melissa's eyes filled with tears, and she tried to grasp any possible argument that could change my mind. "I understand you're angry. I understand that this has been hard for you, but taking Sophie away from me—" "This is not about anger," I interrupted, my voice calm but firm. "This is about making sure she has a stable and loving environment. I've seen how things have been, and I believe that I'm in the best position to provide that for her right now." The conversation continued, with Melissa alternating between pleading and anger. She tried to appeal to my sense of empathy, recounting moments of Sophie's life and expressing her pain and regret. But the more she spoke, the more I was reminded of the betrayal and the need to protect my daughter from further emotional turmoil. At the end of the conversation, Melissa was visibly shaken. She had not been able to change my mind, and the reality of the situation was sinking in. I watched as she struggled to come to terms with the fact that she would be separated from Sophie. As we stood up to leave, I could see the defeat in her eyes. She hugged Sophie tightly, her tears flowing freely as she whispered her goodbyes. Sophie, too young to fully understand the gravity of the situation, clung to her mother with a mixture of confusion and sadness. It was a heart-wrenching scene, and I struggled to keep my own emotions in check as I prepared to take Sophie home. On the car ride back, Sophie sat quietly in the back seat, her small frame silhouetted against the window. I glanced at her in the rearview mirror, my heart aching with the weight of the decisions I had made. The road ahead was uncertain, and the pain of leaving Melissa behind was palpable. But the promise I had made to protect and provide for Sophie remained my guiding force. The farewell was final, and as I drove away from the cafe, I felt a profound sense of loss and sadness. The family dynamic had been irrevocably altered, and the future was now a canvas upon which I would have to paint a new picture, one that would ensure Sophie's well-being and stability amidst the lingering shadows of betrayal. The moment I took Sophie away from Melissa was only the beginning of a protracted and emotionally charged legal battle. Melissa, in a desperate attempt to regain custody, challenged my decision in court. The courtroom became the battleground where we would fight for our daughter's future. And I was prepared to make my case with all the evidence and documentation I had meticulously gathered. The legal proceedings were intense and arduous. Melissa's lawyer filed a petition to contest the custody arrangement, arguing that Melissa was a fit parent and that the evidence I presented did not warrant such a drastic measure. The courtroom became a stage for our private turmoil, with each side presenting their arguments and evidence. The tension was palpable, and every session was a reminder of the personal stakes involved. I had spent weeks preparing for this battle. My lawyer and I had compiled a comprehensive dossier of evidence, the surveillance footage, documentation of the emotional impact on Sophie, and testimonies from experts who could attest to the instability that Melissa and Jason's relationship had introduced into Sophie's life. The goal was to present a compelling case that demonstrated not only the betrayal but also the potential harm to Sophie's well-being if she remained in that environment. Throughout the trial, I focused on presenting a clear and factual account of the situation. The footage was displayed as irrefutable proof of the relationship between Melissa and Jason, and expert witnesses provided insights into how such an environment could affect a child's emotional health. My lawyer meticulously argued that it was in Sophie's best interest to be in a stable and supportive environment, which I could provide. Melissa, on the other hand, struggled to counter the evidence. Her attempts to frame the situation as a personal vendetta or a misunderstanding were overshadowed by the concrete evidence and the detailed testimony we presented. The emotional strain on her was evident as she faced the reality of her situation being laid bare for the court. After weeks of intense legal wrangling, the judge rendered a decision. The ruling was in my favor. The court recognized the legitimacy of my concerns and the quality of the evidence supporting my case. Sophie would remain with me, and the custody arrangement was finalized. The victory was bittersweet. While it was a relief to secure Sophie's future and provide her with the stability she needed, it came at the cost of a profound personal loss. The legal battle had taken a significant emotional toll on everyone involved, and the consequences of the betrayal were now permanently etched into our lives. With the legal battle behind me, I focused on rebuilding a sense of normalcy for Sophie and myself. The aftermath of the custody ruling left Melissa and Jason grappling with the fallout of their actions. Their lives, once intertwined with mine, had been irrevocably changed by the court's decision and the public's reaction to their betrayal. Melissa and Jason attempted to resume their lives, but the impact of the scandal was pervasive. The revelation of their affair and the subsequent custody battle had tarnished their reputations. Friends, family, and acquaintances who had once been supportive now viewed them with skepticism and judgment. The fallout was not limited to public opinion. Their social circles had shrunk, and they found themselves isolated from the networks that had once been a source of support. Melissa faced significant social and professional repercussions. Her attempts to rebuild her career were met with resistance, and the professional relationships she had once relied on were strained. The stigma attached to her actions made it difficult for her to regain her footing, and the emotional toll of the public judgment only added to her challenges. Jason, too, faced consequences. His relationship with Melissa had left him estranged from many of our mutual friends and family members. The sense of betrayal extended beyond me and Sophie. It affected his standing within the broader community. He struggled to find a place where he could belong, his actions having driven a wedge between him and those he once considered close. The social repercussions were compounded by the emotional impact on both Melissa and Jason. They faced a difficult road to recovery, trying to navigate the loss of their previous lives and the damage to their reputations. The public scorn and personal regret created a harsh reality that they had to confront daily. As for Sophie and me, we began to find our way forward. The focus was on creating a stable and loving environment for her, one that would allow her to heal from the upheaval and adapt to the new dynamics of her life. It was a process of rebuilding trust and creating new memories, one that required patience and understanding. Life after the revenge was marked by a sense of both resolution and ongoing adjustment. The betrayal had left deep scars, but the focus remained on providing a nurturing and supportive environment for Sophie. The journey was far from easy, but it was one that we faced together, determined to move forward from the shadows of the past and build a future based on resilience and hope. With the legal battles concluded and a semblance of closure achieved, Sophie and I embarked on the journey of creating a new life together. The transition from the turmoil of the past to a future filled with hope and stability was both a challenge and an opportunity. My primary focus was on ensuring Sophie's well-being and happiness, and I was determined to make our new beginning as positive and nurturing as possible. The first significant step was moving into our new home. After the legal battles and emotional upheaval, the prospect of a fresh start was both exciting and daunting. I chose a house in a peaceful neighborhood, one that offered both safety and a sense of community. It was important to me that our new home be a sanctuary where Sophie and I could rebuild our lives away from the shadows of our past. The process of setting up the house was more than just physical relocation. It was a symbolic gesture of our new beginning. We spent days decorating and arranging our new space, making sure it was inviting and comforting. Sophie's room was transformed into a cheerful, personalized space with her favorite colors and themes. I took great care in creating a space where she would feel secure and happy. The living areas were designed to be functional yet warm, providing a welcoming environment where we could create new memories. Establishing routines was crucial for both of us. I enrolled Sophie in a local preschool, selecting one that had a strong reputation for fostering a supportive and engaging environment. It was important for her to have a structured routine and opportunities for social interaction. The preschool became a cornerstone of her new routine, offering her both educational stimulation and a chance to make new friends. Our daily life quickly took shape with new routines and activities. Mornings began with a structured schedule to ensure that we started our days smoothly. I made sure to be involved in Sophie's morning routine, helping her get ready for school and spending time together before she left. Afternoons were dedicated to exploring our new neighborhood and engaging in activities that brought us both joy. Whether it was visiting nearby parks, attending community events, or simply enjoying outdoor play, these activities provided a sense of normalcy and fun. Building new traditions was another important aspect of our new life. I introduced regular family activities that would become meaningful rituals. Weekend outings became a cherished tradition, allowing us to explore nearby attractions, visit museums, or enjoy nature hikes. These outings not only offered opportunities for adventure but also strengthened our bond and provided a sense of continuity and excitement. Home life was equally important in establishing a sense of stability. I made an effort to create a positive and nurturing atmosphere at home. We spent weekends engaging in creative projects, such as arts and crafts, baking together, or playing games. These activities allowed us to bond, express ourselves, and enjoy each other's company in a relaxed setting. Understanding and addressing Sophie's emotional needs was a priority. The transition had been challenging for her, and I was committed to providing her with the support she needed to process her feelings and adjust. We had open conversations about her experiences and emotions, ensuring that she felt heard and valued. Therapy sessions became a regular part of our routine, providing her with a safe space to explore and express her feelings while also offering me guidance on how to support her effectively. Creating new traditions and finding joy in everyday moments became central to our lives. We established family rituals such as movie nights, where we would select a favorite film and enjoy popcorn and cozy blankets. Celebrating holidays and special occasions with unique traditions helped us build new memories and create a sense of belonging. These rituals became a source of comfort and happiness, reinforcing the positive aspects of our new life. As time passed, I found myself reflecting on the journey we had undertaken. The challenges of the past had given way to a future that was bright with possibilities. My focus was on being the best parent I could be, ensuring that Sophie had the love, stability, and support she needed to flourish. The experience taught me the importance of resilience and the value of embracing each moment with optimism. Our new life was not without its difficulties, but it was marked by progress and growth. Sophie and I found solace in the small victories and the joy of discovering new experiences together. The journey was one of rebuilding, but it was also one of hope and renewal. Together, we embraced the future with open hearts and a shared commitment to making the most of each new day. In the end, our new life was a testament to our ability to overcome adversity and create a future filled with love and happiness. The road ahead was one of continued growth and exploration, but it was a road we traveled together, strengthened by our shared experiences and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. As time passed and we settled into our new routine, I found myself reflecting deeply on the journey that had brought us to this point. The events of the past months had been tumultuous, marked by betrayal, legal battles, and a quest for retribution. Now, in the calm of our new life, I began to confront the reality of what had transpired and the lessons I had learned along the way. In the quiet moments of reflection, I came to a profound realization: revenge, despite the initial sense of satisfaction it might offer, did not bring true fulfillment. The pursuit of vengeance had consumed a significant portion of my life, driving me to take drastic actions that I had hoped would restore a sense of justice. However, as I looked around at the life we were beginning to build, I saw that the consequences of those actions were complex and multifaceted. The process of seeking retribution had provided a measure of immediate relief but had also left behind a trail of emotional and psychological impacts. The pain and anger that fueled my desire for revenge had been intense, but as I worked to create a stable and loving environment for Sophie, I began to understand that true peace and contentment came from healing and moving forward, not from holding on to past grievances. My focus now was on providing Sophie with a future that was bright and filled with opportunity. I wanted her to grow up in a world where she felt loved, supported, and secure. Every decision I made was guided by this new purpose. I sought to build a life for her that was rich with positive experiences, emotional stability, and the kind of environment that fosters growth and happiness. This shift in focus from retribution to nurturing was not an easy transition. It required a conscious effort to let go of lingering anger and resentment. I engaged in self-reflection and sought therapy to process my feelings and work through the residual pain. It became clear that healing involved more than just creating a new life for Sophie. It was about addressing my emotional wounds and finding a path forward that was rooted in forgiveness and growth. The process of healing was gradual and ongoing. I took time to acknowledge the hurt and disappointment I had experienced and to come to terms with the fact that some things were beyond my control. The journey toward forgiveness, both for Melissa and Jason and for myself, was a crucial part of this process. It was about understanding that holding on to anger only perpetuated my suffering and prevented me from fully embracing the new chapter of our lives. In our daily lives, I focused on creating positive, memorable experiences for Sophie. We celebrated milestones and achievements, enjoyed simple pleasures, and built traditions that reinforced our bond. These activities were not just distractions from the past but deliberate efforts to foster a sense of joy and normalcy. The happiness we shared became a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of moving forward with hope and purpose. As I looked back on the events that had unfolded, I recognized that while the pain of betrayal and the quest for justice were significant parts of our story, they did not define our future. The true measure of success was in our ability to overcome adversity and create a meaningful, fulfilling life despite the challenges we had faced. The reflection on this journey brought a sense of clarity and closure. The realization that revenge had not delivered the satisfaction I had anticipated allowed me to redirect my focus toward more constructive and positive goals. My ultimate aim was to ensure that Sophie had every opportunity to thrive and that we could build a future that was free from the shadows of the past. In the end, the process of reflection and healing was about understanding the lessons learned and using those insights to shape a better future. It was about embracing the present with gratitude and looking forward to the future with optimism. Through this journey, I learned that true fulfillment comes not from exacting revenge but from creating a life of love, stability, and happiness for those who matter most.